I think one of the biggest assumptions in this budget and also in the economic survey is that the economy has totally recovered. They have completely emerged out of the ravages of COVID, pandemic, and everything. Okay, so that is why you see, like for example, the outlay towards the MGNREGA, it's the lowest since 2017-18. 60,000 crore. Whereas you had much higher outlays. I think in 2020-21, I think was a maximum. I think it was close to, I think, 1,12,000 crore or something. So from there to come down to 60,000 crore, and it is the lowest since 2017-18. So, which is a very, I mean, it's a real sort of a giant leap of faith. It really assumes that, there is no longer any rural distress, etc. And the economy will sort of absorb the additional jobs which are being created. I mean, despite the fact that your exports aren't going to do very well, you have a global recession. Okay, so I think there are too many assumptions in the budget, which is seen in this whole thing. Even for example, like PM Kisan, everybody thought that maybe they might increase the spend, maybe by say 500 rupees per installment. So instead of say 6,000, it would have become say 7,500, and maybe closer to the election, maybe 90,000 rupees. I mean, I think that is what was assumed. But I think the general assumption is that everything is now normal, and you don't need any special interventions in the economy. No special alleviation measures are required. So, which is why even the PM Garib Kalyan and Anna Yojana, the additional 5 kg grain has been withdrawn. So it is like it's I won't call it triumphalist, but it basically it assumes that everything is back to normal, and we have crossed that worst whatever, not a hump, whatever, the worst distress hump has been passed, and it is back to and it is back to 2019, not even 2019, probably 2017. I mean, that's what as far as MGNREGA is concerned, which I think is a very big the real change in this budget when it comes to agri and social sectors.
No, I completely agree, and I think that's been pointed out a lot. I mean, some have said it's a sort of voting for macro fiscal stability in lieu of welfare, and that is a real risk. It is a judgment, and as you say, it's based on certain assumptions, which we really don't have data, and certainly anecdotal evidence does not seem to say that all those assumptions are easily borne out. So I think, as you say, it's a budget built on certain assumptions. In terms of agriculture, Harish, one thing that struck me, and I think the PM Kisan point was well taken. I think people thought in the run-up to the budget that there would be an increase. I think this morning, the former Union Secretary Siraj Hussain has suggested maybe it will be in the interim budget for 2025, because the original PM Kisan announcement also came just before elections. So if they wanted to keep a little space, and people have said this is not populist, but if they wanted to keep some space, maybe it'll come later. But I think what was striking was that, and I think it's important to keep in mind that the cash transfer, which is PM Kisan, is still at least half of the agriculture budget. So the big increase in agriculture that has happened over this period has all been a cash transfer, rather than increases in public investment or support to agriculture. And I think in terms of the direction of the announcements, that very much continues. So it wasn't about substantial investment in agriculture. It was directional sort of change that they were talking about, where I think you can get a sense of where at least the wind is blowing in terms of what government thinks are going to be sources of change. So a few things that I picked up. One is from wheat and rice, you saw this big focus on millets, at least announced. And the main change was actually a global hub for millets and the Millet Research Center. Whereas I think a lot of people have been talking about the need to think about decentralized procurement and distribution. I think you have been talking about it. We have been saying that actually we have the ICDS, we have the PDS, we have a possibility of actually expanding decentralized procurement. That is not the direction in which it went. Instead, it was largely about becoming a global hub for all varieties of millets and research, which is very important, no doubt, in agriculture. But there was an opportunity here to be more creative about what actual support to millets could mean. I think with natural farming, again, it's absolutely unclear. I mean, that's been said now for the last few budgets, but it's unclear again what the nature of that support is. There is some decentralized fertilizer production that they've kind of focused on. Decentralized storage has come from somewhere. There are some of these announcements. These are not bad things, but again, they're not very cohesive in terms of what is the full direction. I think a lot of focus, at least again in language, on agri-tech. That to me is interesting, and this agri entrepreneurs, because with the farm laws, the focus was on the large-scale private sector coming and building private infrastructure, right, and public infrastructure and markets. Now it seems to have moved to digital infrastructure and agri-tech as the big focus. And finally, I thought it was interesting that after many years of talking about FPOs, this budget actually didn't mention FPOs and talked about cooperatives, both primary agricultural cooperative societies and then multi-purpose cooperative societies in allied sectors. And so, again, institutionally, there was, if you look at the previous budgets, there was some continuity, but there was a lot of interesting institutional change, which, again, in agriculture doesn't mean anything unless you actually invest in that direction, unless you build both material, infrastructural, and sort of institutional support in that direction. And one didn't get that sense in the budget. But that was how I read. There were some interesting shifts, therefore. I don't know what you think particularly about some of this return of the mention of cooperatives or...
Yeah, like for example, earlier, I think millets were called, they were called Nutri cereals. Now they are being called as Sri Anna. So I think that there's been more of that kind of a thing. No coherent. But, I mean, as they say, show me the money. Where's the money? So I think definitely in terms of outlays, etc., and in terms of ambition, that's gone. I don't think it is there. Including things like agricultural accelerators. There's a lot of talk. It swings from extreme Sanskrit to total digital, using terms like accelerator, etc. So I don't think we should take these things seriously beyond the point. But that one can assume things like, for example, definitely the subsidy outgo, for example, on fertilizers will be lower because your global prices have come down definitely from their peaks. Like after the war, the way prices of diammonium phosphate and phosphoric acid, all these things, the ammonia, etc., rose. Those have come down. But the entire assumption, as I said, is the pandemic is over, the war is over. It's almost like that, and we are, we have reached a normal, and from here now it's just, it's really what is it called? An upswing from now. Whereas I think there are a lot of uncertainties in the days ahead. We don't know how the March temperatures will be. We don't know how the Rabi crop is going to be. So I think those are the kind of things where I would have liked to have more detail. Definitely, I would have expected more something to do with climate change. Definitely, millets are not an answer for climate change. Sorry, it cannot happen. You cannot fight climate change through millets. Millets should be treated as a separate thing in itself. Whereas
and it's around
I would have liked to see something more on. Yes. I would have liked to see, like even millets, I would have liked to see how they are going to integrate it with the PDS, or at least the PM portion. So the thing is, they launch schemes and then we forget about them. I don't think she even spoke about PM portion this time. Whereas that should have been the focus. Millets. Rather than projecting them as cool, fashionable foods. That's
global
not the
hub.
way.
So I think that's the key thing, that there was no cohesion, and if there's no coherence and cohesion, to me it signals how important is this. And for many years, I think we have been saying that if you take agriculture seriously, you treat it seriously and coherently and cohesively
as a business.
And I think even during COVID, we said that agriculture is a sector that has absorbed risks. So while this pandemic was unprecedented, for farmers, risks are seasonal and different factors throw up. And so I suppose the other thing is that farmers have seen budgets come and go every year, but it's really going to be the weather, it's going to be all of these other dynamics that one will have to wait and watch to understand what happens, this year. So